Mark Levin here. The post-election economy could be a minefield of inflation, massive debt, and currency instability. That's why I count on gold for my financial protection. When it comes to gold, I only trust Advantage Gold. They're one of the top gold companies in America, and that's who I turn to for my own investments. Call them now, 800-900-8000, for a free gold investment kit, and see if you qualify for $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Don't wait and see if post-election chaos destroys your savings. Act preemptively. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Well, Kamala Harris is showing her sharpened teeth. Obviously, they've decided Harris, Obama, Clinton, Biden, all the grifters, all the hangers-on, all the hemorrhoidics. Those are human hemorrhoids. All the hemorrhoidics. She can't win on substance. She can't win on personality. She can't win on policy. Attack, attack, attack. And so it started. She's at the Washington Crossing in Pennsylvania, which to me is an iconic place. Washington Crossing. I spent a lot of my childhood there, as did my brothers, as did those of us who attended my parents' day camp. We used to hike there. And that is where Washington's Crossing, that's where they began their trek in the freezing December, crossing the Delaware, the Battle of Trenton, which would be the first successful battle in the Revolutionary War. And Kamala Harris goes there with never Trumpers. She goes there with the lowest of the low. And what does she do when she's there? I've got clip after clip that Mr. Producer got. Trump is unstable and unhinged, she announced. Trump considers any American who doesn't support him the enemy, she announces. The Constitution determines if we can criticize the president without being targeted by the military, she announces. And so there they are, fear-mongering and scare tactics, because the fact of the matter is, this is where the Democrats live. This is who they are. And they're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars in the last 20 days of this election trying to scare the hell out of the American people. For instance, cut one, Mr. Producer, go.
Donald Trump is increasingly unstable and unhinged.
Clapping seals.
And he is seeking unchecked power. Consider what his closest advisors have said. his national security advisor, 2 defense secretaries, his former chief of staff, his own vice president, all have warned America Donald Trump is unfit to serve.
Really? And what
Donald
about the okay? And what about the 92% of your staff that quit? What does your chief of staff say? They're too scared to come forward. I wonder why. What did your former communications director have to say? And so forth and so on. The truth is that Donald Trump had lousy defense secretaries. His national security advisor, John Bolton, who regularly encouraged me to encourage Donald Trump to hire him, turned on Donald Trump. I don't even talk to the guy anymore. And Mike Pence has to answer for himself. Mike Pence has to answer for himself, and one day he will, because I know he wants to run for president again, but he will fail. Because in a choice between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, it's a simple choice. For those of us who love this country, love Israel, love our principles, love our freedom. It's not complicated. But this is what she does, a Washington crossing. She doesn't have an agenda, not a serious one. She doesn't have a substantive set of policies that can pass that make any sense. She's a chameleon. She has to be a chameleon in order to hide her radical left-wing beliefs and policies. Cut 2, Mr. Producer, go.
And now, Donald Trump is telling us how he intends to use power if he is elected again. He has stated that one of the biggest threats America faces is, quote, the enemy from within.
The enemy from within. A phrase that was made famous in the 1830s by Abraham Lincoln. But she's too stupid to know, and her speechwriters are too stupid to know. The enemy from within. We have enemies within. Thanks to the open borders, thanks to Harris and Biden. We also have Marxists and Islamists. They march down the street. They burn the American flag. They tell us what they want to do to our country. They want to destroy what they call the empire. We do have enemies who are within. And if you have somebody who wants to fundamentally transform America, which seems to be the rallying cry of the Democrat Party, I don't exactly call them allies of America, do you? But she goes on. Go ahead.
The enemy from within.
Now, keep something in mind. She's trying to cast Donald Trump as the enemy from within, isn't she, Mr. Producer? He's unstable. He's unhinged. He's going to use the military. He's going to round us up. He's going to throw us in prison. He may even execute some of us. They call him Hitler. They call him all kinds of names. 2 assassination attempts. Maybe more for all we know. They dehumanize him. She's still dehumanizing him. She's using the same mantra. She's using the same propaganda. She's using the same hot-button issues that gets all these nuts out there excited. All these nuts out there excited. We got to take him out. He's unstable. He's unhinged. He doesn't believe in America. He doesn't believe in the Constitution. He's going to round us up. Somebody do something, right? There's Kamala Harris after 2 assassination attempts against Donald Trump. That we know of. There may be more. She goes right back to the hysterical language. She goes right back to it to further inflame. To further inflame people that might do Donald Trump harm. That's right. I speak the truth. Because she wants some votes. Because that's all she ever wants. Except when she doesn't. Like she got the nomination without a single vote. Go ahead.
That language harkens back to. Understand.
Harkens back to Abraham Lincoln, you idiot. It harkens back to Thomas Jefferson, who said something very similar. It harkens back to Associate Justice Joseph Story, one of the great legal minds who wrote about it. It harkens back to Ronald Reagan, all of whom said if this country falls, it'll be because of the enemy from within or because of what happens from within the country, not outside the country. That's exactly what Donald Trump's talking about. She's such an ignoramus. She's so illiterate when it comes to everything. History, literature, English, economics, that she and her grifters put together this argument. That he's unstable, he's unhinged, he's going to round people up, he's this, he's that. The enemy within, oh my God. Was the Ku Klux Klan the enemy from within? Yes. Were slaveholders the enemy from within? Yes. Were segregation the enemy from within? Yes. Are the anti-Semites the enemy from within? Yes. And I can do a whole list of enemy from within. Go ahead.
Clear about what he is saying. He considers any American who doesn't support him or bend to his will.
No, he never said that. And that's not what he believes. And you're a liar. And God forbid if this kind of sickening propaganda that totalitarians use, that tyrants use, that fascists and Marxists use, that autocrats of every kind use, God forbid if this enables you to slide into office because you're using the most grotesque abuse of the English language and the abuse of the political system and the abuse of the American people. You don't care. And remember her sitting on that Senate's Judiciary Committee, how she treated Brett Kavanaugh, how she lied through her teeth. And remember, when the head of ICE was sitting there as a witness and she compared them to the Ku Klux Klan, it's the same lady. Remember this. Remember who she is. She will steep to any level, for power, for attention, and to be president of the United States. She's the one who is enormously dangerous. And remember also, it is she and Biden who attack our First Amendment rights, free speech. It is she and Biden who attack our Second Amendment rights, the right to bear arms. It is she and Biden who attack the Fourth and Fifth Amendment, due process. Due process, equal protection. It's she and Biden who defy a Supreme Court that says, no, you can't hand out student loan money like this, but they do it anyway. It's she and Biden who want to destroy the independence of the Supreme Court and they attack the justices. It's she and Biden and her running mate who want to destroy the Electoral College. It's she and Biden who reject separation of powers. It's she and Biden who want to stuff the judiciary like a Politburo to get the answers that only they want, not judges as referees. It's she and Biden who've attacked our history, who've attacked our founders. There she is. How dare she stand at Washington Crossing? How dare she stand on the hallowed ground where George Washington stood, where her supporters hate Washington, dismiss him as a slave owner? How dare she stand on that hallowed ground and act like she's the one defending this country, defending our independence, when she sides with the very people who trash this country, trash its founding, who reject the Declaration of Independence and reject the Constitution as well? How dare she stand there and pretend that she's a great patriot, that she defends Americanism, when it is she who is the Marxist Islamist? I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The upcoming election isn't just about choosing leaders. It's about bracing for the economic fallout that could follow. You know, history shows that post-election periods can bring economic turmoil. But this time, with our national debt skyrocketing and global tensions rising, we could be facing unprecedented risks. We could see runaway inflation or even a currency crisis. That's why I encourage people to diversify and look at gold as a financial safety net. Gold has been said to be a reliable wealth shield for thousands of years through some of the worst economic storms. And for my gold investments, I trust Advantage Gold. They're who I buy from exclusively, and I recommend them to anyone serious about helping to protect their wealth. You can call them right now at 800-900-8000, 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. You can even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be happy you did. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. Kamala Harris, a chameleon, a Svengali, but in her heart, you know she's wrong. Marxist Islamist. She was just pouring it on sacred ground, Washington Crossing. The great commander of American forces, General George Washington, who her supporters despise. They despise him. The way they've talked about the founders. But they always seek cover. They start waving the American flag, standing behind the Declaration and the Constitution, now standing behind George Washington. What do you think George Washington would think of what's taking place here? She has said horrendous things about Donald Trump. So they're back on the dehumanization campaign. She's trying to draw attention to herself, and I'll tell you why. A Fox poll just came out. Nationwide now, popular election, it's Donald Trump 50%, Kamala Harris 48%. I'm not a poll guy, but I'm telling you why they're reacting the way they are. I'm telling you why they're reacting the way they are. They're scared. Whether they have reason to be or not, it doesn't matter. They're scared. And they're in full war mode, full dehumanization mode. Cut 3, Mr. Producer, go.
We here know the Constitution is not a relic from our past, but determines whether we are a country where the people can speak freely.
Now, this is an amazing thing. And those of you who are in the audience, you know what I'm talking about. The Constitution, it's not a relic of the past. How many of these people, that is radical left-wing Democrats, have talked over and over again that the Constitution is a relic of the past? Woodrow Wilson said it's a relic of the past. Obama said it's a relic of the past. Kamala Harris believes it's a relic of the past, which is why they defy it. This is stunning. They're all now constitutionalists. I'm sure that Sam Alito, Clarence Thomas, Gorsuch, among others, are pleased to hear this, that Kamala Harris is now one of them. The Constitution's not a relic of the past. My God, I can burn all my books now. Because in many respects, I've been responding to them and their attack on our Constitution. The real position of Kamala Harris and her supporters is that the Constitution is too confining. That we need activist judges who will get us around the firewalls in the Constitution. That separation of powers is a death knell. That federalism, where states actually have something to say, cannot be tolerated. The centralization of government, the reliance on masterminds and experts, the rejiggering of human nature, the remaking of the republic. This is what every so-called progressive has said for 120 years. And this is what Kamala Harris believes. She was the most left-wing senator in her short term in the Senate. Left of Bernie Sanders. She never supported an originalist constitutionalist to any federal bench, ever. The Constitution's not a relic, she says. It determines whether we are a country where the people can speak. So why doesn't she comply with it? Why are they handing out hundreds of billions of dollars in student loan forgiveness when the Supreme Court said no? Why are they attacking the Supreme Court? Why are they undermining the Bill of Rights? Why are they doing all those things that people who hate the Constitution and the country and want to fundamentally transform it are doing? She's a fraud and a phony. I'll be right back. Folks, we may be standing on the precipice of a post-election economic meltdown. Any election can send shockwaves through our financial system, but this time, the stakes could be higher than ever. Reckless spending, mounting debt, misguided policies has set the stage for potential economic disaster. We can see rapid inflation or even attempts to undermine our currency. That's why I've always relied on diversification and gold for protection. It's been said to be a timeless safeguard against economic chaos, and in these uncertain times, it's more crucial than ever. ever. When it comes to gold, I trust Advantage Gold exclusively. They're one of the top gold companies in America, and they're who I turn to for my own investments. Call 800-900-8000 right now for a free gold investment kit to see how gold can help protect you from post-election chaos. You might even qualify for $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
The new American Revolution starts here. The Mark Levin Show. Call in at 877-381-3811.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, during the breaks, I watched some of this interview with Bret Baier and Kamala Harris, and Bret Baier was absolutely fantastic. It's clear Kamala came in with two game plans, she and her grifter advisors: filibuster and attack Trump in the worst way. Basically, the speech she gave in the Washington Crossing today was what she was trying to do during the interview. And she started, can I finish? Can I finish? She would not address his specific topics coming right out of the box. And here, I want to show you, Mr. Producer, who's the best of the best. This is how it began. Cut one, go.
How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration, because I agree with you. It is a...
Now, see, stop right there. So she was going to spend the whole time trashing Trump and the Republicans on the bipartisan bill and so forth. But that's not what he asked her. Go ahead.
That people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but
right
do you,
now,
just a number. Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Brett, let's just get to the point. Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions...
I'm not finished. We have
it's a rough estimate of 6 million people have been released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question, I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And
no, you actually weren't.
When you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So, looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before...
Stop. They had the Senate, the House, and the presidency. We offered... They had the Senate, the House, and the presidency. Go ahead.
Before the CHIPS and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the... Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please?
But
you have to let me finish,
You
please.
had the White House and the House and the Senate,
and
they didn't bring up that bill.
I'm in the middle of responding to the point you're raising, and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
We recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem.
We have one more clip, Rich? Let's go with it. Go ahead.
That border bill would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border, which is why I believe the Border Patrol agents supported the bill. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States, which is a scourge affecting people of every background, every geographic location in our country, killing people. It would have allowed us to put more resources into prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, which I have done as the Attorney General, former Attorney General of a border state.
Madam Vice President, a couple of things.
Prosecuted trafficking of drugs, guns, and human beings. And Donald Trump, but let me just finish.
6 Democrats voted against that bill.
Learned about that bill and told them to kill it because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And in this election, this is rightly a discussion that the American people want to have. And what they want are solutions, and they want
she's filibustering. She's not answering a question. He said 6 Democrats, God bless him, 6 Democrats voted for that bill, which means Donald Trump didn't kill it. A bipartisan group of senators killed it. Go ahead.
Who's not playing political games with the issue,
I hear you,
but actually is focused on fixing it.
6 Democrats voted against that bill. It would have allowed 1.8 million illegal immigrants into the country a year. A lot of conservatives had a problem with it. These are the 6 Democrats.
Beautiful. 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 And he put a photo of each of the 6 Democrats up on the screen. We did that on Sunday. But it gives the lie to this. And finally, somebody in the news has picked up on this. So we salute Bret. She was this way throughout the interview. I mean, again, I only saw during the breaks. She was confrontational. She wanted to filibuster because she only had 25, 30 minutes. That's what they wanted. I believe Fox wanted like an hour. She gave him 25, 30 minutes. We have another cut. Go.
There's a lot of people that look back at what you said at 2019 when you first ran for president. And there have been changes, and you've talked about some of them. When it comes to immigration, you supported allowing immigrants in the country illegally to apply for driver's license, to qualify for free tuition at universities, to be enrolled in free health care. Do you still support those things?
Listen, that was 5 years ago, and I'm very clear that I will follow.
Wow, that's a long time ago, 5 years ago, Mr. Producer, isn't it? What's changed? She's running for president. She's a chameleon. She's a pathological liar. She wants to get elected. Then she'll go back to being old Kamala. Marxist Islamist. Go ahead.
Make that statement over and over again. And as vice president of the United States, that's exactly what I've done, not to mention before.
If that's the case, you chose a running mate, Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, who signed those very things into state law. So do you support that?
We are very clear, and I am very clear, as is Tim Walz.
She always says she's very clear when she's as opaque as can be. Go ahead.
We must support and enforce federal law, and that is exactly what we will do.
We will do it, but not now while I'm vice president. Of course, I had nothing to do with the border. I was not the border czar. I mean, she's worse than a Svengali. I'm quite serious. She makes Houdini look like an amateur. She's the greatest political magician I've ever seen. Except she's not very good at hiding her political tricks here, is she? We know who she is and we know what she is. She's attacked Donald Trump, this enemy from within. Donald Trump responded to this in an interview that he had today. Cut 4, go.
Kamala Harris has said you sounded unhinged and unchecked power is in our future. What do you say about that?
I thought it was a nice presentation. I wasn't unhinged. You know what they are? They're a party of sound bites. Somebody asked me, can they be brought together? You know, I never thought really, I wasn't thinking like they could, because they're very, very different. And it is the enemy from within, and they're very dangerous. They're Marxists and communists and fascists, and they're sick. I use a guy like Adam Schiff because they made up the Russia hoax. It took 2 years to solve the problem. Absolutely nothing was done wrong, et cetera, et cetera. They're dangerous for our country. We have China, we have Russia, we have all these countries. If you have a smart president, they can all be handled. The more difficult are, the Pelosi's, these people, they're so sick. And they're so evil. If they would spend their time trying to make America great again, it would be so easy to make this country great. But when I heard about that, they were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
All right.
They're the threat to democracy.
And that's the truth. That's the truth. They've unleashed criminal investigations at the local, state, and federal level, civil attacks to try and bankrupt the man. They literally want to put him in prison. They've interfered with this election in one courtroom after another. They unconstitutionally appointed a special counsel who's like a Doberman with a bone in his mouth, and you won't give it up. I mean, this is all true. They impeached him twice. They conducted a criminal investigation, and this is all while he's president. They tried to handicap him. They tried to kneecap him. We have Jamie Raskin, who is a Stalinist, who not only objected to other elections, the counts of Electoral College, when it came to other Republicans, but he's already announced that should Donald Trump win, listen to this, should Donald Trump win, that he will lead the effort to fight him on the Electoral College when the House and the Senate meet, and if he fails, he will lead the effort to impeach him. They've already announced it. They've already announced it. The same thing they did before. But you see, they're for democracy, just not the founders. They're for democracy, just not the Constitution. For the democracy, just not fair and honest elections. They're for free speech, just not yours. And we can go on and on and on. On and on and on. And it's going to get worse. It's going to get more desperate as we come to the final days, less than 3 weeks. They're monitoring the polls. I'm not really. But they keep flashing it on the screen on Fox. 50 to 48. That's the national number right now with Trump in the lead. Please, don't embrace that and sit on your laurels and say, well, I can wait till Election Day to vote. No. Vote early. Get it done. Help get out other people to vote. You can see how cancerous, how poisonous these people are. That it is they who are dehumanizing their political opponents. It is they who unleash the criminal justice system against their political opponents. It is they who seek to bankrupt their political opponents. It is they who seek to imprison their political opponents. They're doing it as we speak. They keep saying what Donald Trump's going to do. He was president for 4 years. He didn't do any of it. Now, they had about 100 Republicans or so-called, at Washington's Crossing to listen to this maniacal, hateful speech of Kamala Harris. You know, they talk about what Trump says. I've never heard anything so horrendous in my life from any candidate as the stuff that she was spewing. Never. Or the stuff that she said about ICE and the Klan. Or the stuff she said about Brett Kavanaugh. She's a nasty person. She's an angry person. Just ask those staffers. The 92% who quit on her when she was vice president. Yes. Kamala Harris is on with this guy, Charlemagne. This guy gets more FaceTime on Fox than I think Kilmeade. What do you think, Mr. Producer? Cut 5, go.
Donald Trump would go into the Department of Justice and manipulate it in such a way that it would be used as a weapon against his political enemies.
Yeah, he's going to lock y'all up if he gets back in office.
Well,
you know, let's stop a minute. I don't know what the big deal is about this Charlemagne the God or whatever the hell he calls himself. You impressed with this guy? He may have influence, but he sounds like a fool. Yes, he's going to lock you all up if he gets back in office. Is that an intelligent comment? I don't know. Has Charlemagne objected to the effort to lock up Donald Trump in one jurisdiction after another? In one courtroom after another? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. Yes, he's going to lock you all up if he gets back in office. Hey, Charlemagne, you want to bet $1 million on that? That he's not going to lock them all up? You strike me as a very wealthy man, and good for you. But you're the god. You're the god. So he's going to lock you all up. He's going to lock up Kamala Harris. You all right? That's you all, right? He's going to lock up Joe Biden. He's going to lock up Tim Walz. I assume that's what they mean by you all. Put your money where your mouth is, pal. He's not going to lock you all up. And they know it. And this is the dehumanization of Donald Trump. They're creating something that doesn't exist. And it has never existed. Go ahead.
You should look at his words. I don't think that you as a journalist...
Why don't we look at your words? I've looked at your words. I've looked at your positions. You trash your country. You trash the police. You've trashed the military. You've trashed the Border Patrol. You've trashed ICE. You've trashed Netanyahu and Israel. We look at your words. We look at your actions. We look at your positions. We are. But you're so power hungry, you try and change them in the last 70 days. You went in hiding for most of this campaign. After you were anointed, you never got elected. You didn't get one vote. But you're Madam Democracy. You're Madam Democracy. 14.5 million voters in the primary disenfranchised. No big deal. No big deal. Yeah. Listen to the things they say. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The upcoming election isn't just about choosing leaders. It's about bracing for the economic fallout that could follow. You know, history shows that post-election periods can bring economic turmoil. But this time, with our national debt skyrocketing and global tensions rising, we could be facing unprecedented risks. We could see runaway inflation or even a currency crisis. That's why I encourage people to diversify and look at gold as a financial safety net. Gold has been said to be a reliable wealth shield for thousands of years through some of the worst economic storms. And for my gold investments, I trust Advantage Gold. They're who I buy from exclusively, and I recommend them to anyone serious about helping to protect their wealth. You can call them right now at 800-900-8000, 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. You can even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be happy you did. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. Well, I don't know if it's possible, but we're going to try to see if we can get Bret Baier on the program next hour. You have another clip, Mr. Producer. Go ahead.
You call Donald Trump, he's misguided. You say now he's unstable.
He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
but
is.
You talked about it.
And Donald Trump
After George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week.
It's about your judgment. Go ahead.
Years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security community, have all spoken.
We had 200 generals and admirals come out and endorse Donald Trump. The vast majority of the military, retired, active, reserves, guardsmen, they're going to vote for Trump, not for Harris. She's hollowed out the military. Not once when she was a senator did she vote for any military budget or any increase in pay for military personnel. Not once. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, Deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Now, I know the dead-enders in the Democrat Party who hate Trump, and many of them hate America. Not all, but too many. They think Kamala was really swell. She was awful. Awful. I even see some of these folks who try to portray themselves as moderate Democrats on TV. I think she did herself pretty well. You know, she could have done this. She could, usual mealy mouse, marble mouse. No, she didn't. She didn't answer a single damn question because she can't. Here's a little bit more of Bret Baier's takedown of Kamala Harris. Now, keep in mind, he wasn't trying to take her down, but she came in with a strategy to filibuster, to interrupt, and to attack Donald Trump relentlessly. And, of course, he had to work his way in. And then I heard him discuss this with his panel, which has since left. He said the deal was that they would start at 5 sharp and that they'd have 25 to 30 minutes. She showed up at 5:15, and her handler said, maybe we can do 15 or 20 minutes. And, of course, he was under the gun because his program begins at 6, and to have a 25, 30-minute interview and then have it prepared for television, they knew what they were doing. They tried to make it very difficult for him. But this is how it works behind the scenes when you have a candidate who you're trying to protect. She didn't even know how many illegal aliens she and Biden let into the country. She wouldn't answer it because she couldn't answer it. So Bret Baier answered it for her, and he gave the information that her own government had. How many cuts do you have there, Rich? Well, let's start from what you've got. Number 1, go.
Why, if he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be the 47th president of the United States? Why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
Okay, stop. What does that have to do with what he asked, Mr. Producer? Not whether it's supposed to be easy. Half the people support him. Why is that? Go ahead.
It is not supposed to be a cakewalk for anyone. So are they misguided, the
50%?
Listen,
are they stupid? What is it?
I would never say that about the American people.
No, and only Hillary does. Go ahead.
You listen to Donald Trump, if you watch any of his rallies, he's the one who tends to demean and belittle.
Listen, the whole day at Washington's Crossing, that's what she was doing. Their press demeans you and me. Their candidates demean you and me. MAGA, Biden. His eyes pop out of his head. MAGA. Yes. Go ahead.
The American people, he's the one who talks about an enemy within. An enemy within.
Gee, we don't have any enemies within, do we, America? No. Are those people marching in the street? Attacking Jews, burning the American flag, talking about overthrowing America? We don't have any enemies within. What the hell's wrong with you? Hamas, Iran, Qatar, putting billions of dollars into our colleges and universities, communist China, the faculty, they're not the enemy within. What's wrong with you? We should disband the FBI. We should disband the CIA. We don't have any enemies within. These fantastic judges and prosecutors, no enemies within. Jamie Raskin, Adam Schiff, the rest of them. No. They're great patriots, don't you know? Defund the police, undermine the military. Oh, they're not the enemies. Come on, get with the revolution, America. Border wide open to, as the New York Times wrote, to reshape the electorate. That's not the enemy within. What's wrong with you? Kill the Electoral College? Kill American sovereignty? That's right. Kill the voting system and the electoral system? Kill the independence of the Supreme Court? Kill the filibuster rule? No. This is all good government stuff. You understand. Enemy within. Again, a phrase used by Abraham Lincoln and other greats. But, of course, the media are ignorant or they don't care. And so is she. Go ahead.
Talking about the American people. Suggesting
no, he's not talking about the American people. He's talking about you. He's talking about Tampon Tim. He's talking about AOC. He's talking about Bernie Sanders. He's talking about, you know who he's talking about. Your Jew-hating, America-hating, Marxist, Islamist wing of the Democrat Party and the media. That's what he's talking about. Go ahead.
American military on the American people.
American military, American people. And why does she always sound like she's in pain? You know what he's talking about? The American people, you know. Come on. You know. Next cut, go.
A number of experts thought you would say China. The FBI director had said that. But you said Iran. If that's the case, what do you say to critics who look at the actions of your administration and say you're not acting like Iran is the number one threat?
Well, I will tell you most recently, whether it was in April or in October, and then several hours on each occasion, that Iran posed a threat to Israel?
That's not what he said. And I and parts of my family, we were in Israel in April, as you know. And we were in our hotel when missiles flew over the hotel and over the Western Wall. During the course of her vice presidency, she's never visited Israel. She's visited the southern border more than she's visited Israel. She's visited Dearborn, Michigan. Dearbornistan more than she's visited Israel. But what does it have to do with this point? This point is you've been funding Iran. You've been giving aid and comfort to Iran. You've not only been appeasing Iran, you've been subsidizing Iran. You've been making excuses for Iran. You told the Israelis not to take out their nuclear sites, so they're not going to have nuclear weapons. You've attacked Netanyahu relentlessly. Again, giving aid and comfort to Iran and the terrorists that surround Israel. Oh, yes. Oh, I forgot. You boycotted his speech to a joint session of Congress when it was your job as the president pro tem of the Senate, being vice president, to sit in the chair. But that was too painful for you, as you were sending signals to the river to the sea crowd, to the little Hitlerians. That's right, Kamala. We know who you are. Yes, we do. Go ahead.
Most recently in the Situation Room, in the most recent attack, working with the heads of our...
Okay, give me a break. She's in the Situation Room. No, she's not. She's in there probably to eat the jelly beans or maybe the cookies or something. She doesn't stay around to do work long enough. Ask the people in western North Carolina and Georgia. When she was for 4 days hobnobbing with the pretty people, with the rich people who she claims she wants to tax. But for some reason, they all support her. Hollywood, Silicon Valley, California, Las Vegas. She wasn't in Washington, D.C. doing her job, and she never attended a single pre-hurricane meeting any time during her vice presidency. So she wasn't the border czar. She never attended pre-hurricane meetings. What the hell did she do? Nobody knows. She didn't do anything. But there she is in the Situation Room. Oh, yes, the last person agreed with Biden on Afghanistan. The debacle in Afghanistan, she said, yes, I was the last one he spoke to. She's proud of it. Next clip, Mr. Producer. Go.
This particular one from the Trump campaign has gotten a lot of attention.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
So are you still in support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law, and it's a law that Donald Trump
It's not what he asked you, and the law doesn't require prisoners getting sex change operations. And here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. An administration can press a position, a policy, They can go to court and object to what's taking place. They can appeal a district court's ruling, say a radical left-wing, Biden, Obama, Clinton appointee. They can appeal the cases. She knows this. She's been hanging around the bureaucracy long enough. I'll follow the law. Well, what is the law? The law's being made as we speak. What's the law say about women's sports and men in women's sports? The law said no, but they changed. They changed Title IX to the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And Title IX was a 1972 education amendment to that Civil Rights Act. How do I know? I read it. That's how I know. And it is they who forced the change and broke the barrier to allow boys and men into girls and women's sports. They did it, and she supported it. I'll follow the law. But they don't follow the law. Every single immigration law they usurped. The Supreme Court ruled you don't have the power to forgive student loans. That's separation of powers. Congress has the power of the purse. They did it anyway. The Supreme Court ruled the CDC, or actually OSHA, does not have the power to regulate the requirement of taking vaccines. But they did it anyway. And the court ruled they didn't have the authority. I can go on and on and on. That's right, I could. But I have to take a break. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The big wireless carriers want to limit you to two choices when it comes to data, unlimited or unlimited. And guess what? Both are stupidly expensive. So folks, stop overpaying for data you're never going to use. That's like paying for a pot of coffee when you only need a cup, or filling your entire truck bed full of gas when you only need a tank. With Pure Talk, my cell phone company, you get to choose how much data you actually want. Listen to this. For just $25 a month, get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data, which is more than enough, plus mobile hotspot. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless and get America's best 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is easy. There's no contract. There's no activation fees. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month when you sign up with Pure Talk. Ladies and gentlemen, obviously we were on the air, but during the break I watched this interview by Bret Baier with Kamala Harris, and I have to say, Bret Baier is a professional. He was fantastic. She was pulling the usual tricks, filibustering, attacking Trump, sort of moving in different directions, lecturing, and Bret just kept trying to pin her down, and I think she looked awful. I think if you're just an average American, you're trying to make up your mind who to vote for, you learned nothing from her except that she was quite arrogant. Bret Baier, how are you, my friend?
Hey, Mark. Yeah, I was. There was a slight bit of frustration. I had so much stuff to get to, and I was hoping that it was really going to be this civil back and forth. But, it was good for her to come on, and I think she should do more of them. But I was just trying to get through the talking points, and it took a while, and it was a little bit of, interrupting and kind of getting in on the breath.
It was clear they had a strategy to come in there, which was, if you asked a question, to divert to something else, to spend most time trashing Trump, giving little speeches, filibustering, and so forth. They knew you only had a limited amount of time, and they were hoping that that's how they would play it. But you know what? You didn't tolerate it. You weren't angry. You weren't rude. You were trying to get back in, and you did. And I have to tell you, I watched some of the comments by some of the people on Fox and so forth, and some of them were dead wrong. I'm telling you. I'm not taking this as a partisan. I was watching this to try and analyze it and talk to my audience. We have millions of people listening right now from coast to coast, and I bet you they agree with me, not just because they're conservatives and so forth. She did not come off well. Here's an example, Brent. What did you learn from her after 25 minutes? You asked her about the border. You asked her about Iran. You got the usual pablum, and I'm not finished, and I'm not finished. I mean, that's what I got out of her, that she was quite rude and that she had a strategy in place and she was going to do it no matter what. I don't view that as a successful interview from her perspective.
Which is why, Mark, I said at the end of the show, you go back and look at this transcript, there is some news in there. There is some news where she says she's going to follow the law. She's not saying what position she took in 2019 and where she is now. She's going to follow the law. She said that, Donald Trump did the same thing about transgender surgery in prison inmates and illegal aliens, which is not true. The Trump prison system had this policy. He never advocated for it, and a transition or transgender surgery never happened in his presidency. And she said, you have to own what happens in your presidency. Well, that was after talking about the border and trying to get her to own the change to remain in Mexico policy on the early days of the administration.
But you know what, Bret Baier, the thing is this. She was never going to allow this just to be a regular interview where you ask questions and she answers the questions directly. She had an agenda. She had no intention. You asked her how many illegal aliens came in. You should have that off the top of your head. People talk about it all the time. As you pointed out, her own administration has put numbers out. She doesn't know. She talks about Iran. You asked her about their actions toward Iran, and then she talks about how they're supporting Israel. But you didn't ask her that. You asked her about Iran. And this went on and on and on. And I have to believe that people who aren't sure what they want to do are saying, wait a minute. She didn't say anything. She didn't answer anything. And she's busy spending probably 40% of the time attacking Donald Trump.
Which, by the way, Mark, I was really surprised when, after having two bites at the apple about what's going to be different in a Harris administration from a Biden administration, from The View, from Stephen Colbert, and then from me, she did not have any specifics. And she kept on saying, we need to turn the page. And I said, turn the page from what? You've been vice president for 3.5 years. And she said, from Donald Trump. You know what I'm talking about. And I finally said, Madam Vice President, I don't know what you're talking about. You've been in office for 3.5 years.
That was a great point. No, we don't know what you're talking about. I want to say this to you also. You're going to get a lot of incoming from the usual. 100%. And 100%. But I want you to know, seriously, and not just because I'm your friend, but this was a very, very important interview. Not because she revealed so much information, but she revealed herself even more. And I think this is why they try and keep her undercover. Unless she's attacking Trump, unless she can go off topic, unless she can minimize the amount of time that she's actually questioned, limit the number of questions, unless she can get her rehearsed lines out, she doesn't really know what to say. I mean, honestly, Brett, if I were there and you were asking me questions, I could boom, 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 boom. She doesn't do that.
I think that they prepared for this like a debate, and they wanted a moment. And, they wanted a viral moment. They wanted a moment that could play on MSNBC, which will play, when she's going after Donald Trump and getting angry. I think that was the moment she practiced for. She was off the trail yesterday, and I think they probably had some time. They originally said 25 to 30 minutes. We got there. They said 20 minutes. And then we said we had to start. They gave us this time that we had to do the taping at 5 o'clock, which is the weird thing. I mean, I was going to do it live, but I decided we were going to do it as live, tape, and then just turn around the tape. But we said in order to do that, you have to be starting by 5:15 just for our machines to be able to turn it around by the top of the 6 p.m. They were supposed to start at 5. She walked in at 5:16, and all my people and the producers are sweating, and can we technically turn it around? So that was all part of icing the kicker and kind of delaying. That's a little behind the scenes.
Bret Baier, I'd like to hold you over. I won't hold you much longer, but I have a couple quick questions and points to make, if you don't mind. So we'll be quick. Hang with me. Bret Baier, who did a fantastic job in very hostile circumstances, and I think he's right. She came in there like it was going to be a debate, and she really was going on offense, and she wasn't going to allow things to happen. But Bret still got in there. We'll be right back. The big wireless carriers want to limit you to two choices when it comes to data, unlimited or unlimited. And guess what? Both are stupidly expensive. So folks, stop overpaying for data you're never going to use. That's like paying for a pot of coffee when you only need a cup, or filling your entire truck bed full of gas when you only need a tank. With Pure Talk, my cell phone company, you get to choose how much data you actually want. Listen to this. For just $25 a month, Get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data, which is more than enough, plus mobile hotspot. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless and get America's best 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is easy. There's no contract. There's no activation fees. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month when you sign up with Pure Talk. We're here with Bret Baier, who just finished interviewing Kamala Harris. Let's step back a second, Bret. Is this not the weirdest election in your lifetime? I mean, here you're talking to somebody who never received the vote for the presidential nomination. She's hiding out for 2 months. Now, all of a sudden, she wants to get out there. She goes to Howard Stern and all of her, she thinks, her favorite haunts. Then you decide to do one interview on Fox with Bret Baier. And they're playing these games, 5-16 and, 20 minutes, not 25, 30 minutes. You probably were getting a sense right away, boy, this is pretty hostile. I mean, and she had an opportunity to sit there for 30 minutes and answer your questions, but she didn't do it.
It was two ways it could have gone, Mark. I was really hoping it was going to go the way that I envisioned, which was more kind of like a conversation about topics. We could say, you have differences. This is where I am. I would press, but in a respectful way. And I've done many of those interviews where it's really fruitful to have a back and forth, and you get someplace and you actually learn something about policy and where they are. Then I thought it could be the other way. It could be that this is meant for a viral moment. And essentially, it's a practice for a debate. And, so I need to be able to, get my questions as much as I can in a respectful but tough way, and hope that, she comes back when she's in a different talkative mood and we learn more. I think, I'm offering both sides all of this, and the network's been awesome. They took all the commercial breaks out of the first half of the show, and that's in an effort so people can learn stuff. And I just feel like we didn't learn a ton from this back and forth.
But she didn't want you to learn anything. That's the reason. That's why she was hiding out for 2 months. That's why she only goes pretty much to people she knows who've openly endorsed her. You're a journalist. You're one of the few journalists left. You and Martha and a few others and so forth. And you're there. And I've seen you interview Democrats, tough on them, but respectful. Republicans, tough on them and respectful. She was not going to allow you to do the kind of an interview a journalist would do. She wanted to control it. She wanted to filibuster. She wanted to attack Donald Trump. I don't think she really got out of this what she wanted to get out of it because you wouldn't allow it. But on the other hand, I don't think she persuaded a single voter that she's the one to support. I really don't. I mean, based on what? I didn't see anything. Now, her base may get excited, which includes some of the media, MSNBC and so forth. But that's about it. What do you think?
I think so. I think the left will be fired up that she was a tough commander-in-chief and she, stuck it to Fox News. And I think that that's what they'll say. But I do think that there were some vulnerabilities in there. The answers on immigration were really thin. They were only a couple inches deep. And trying to get to the decisions, I mean, you could have said, Mark, looking back, I think we should have. I think we should have left Remain in Mexico. Imagine that moment. Or how about turn the page? You know what? There are some things I would do differently. I probably would have done Afghanistan differently. Even though I wasn't the last person in the room, there are some differences. But she does not want to say that. And then she says that, she never saw any problems with Joe Biden, mentally.
Now, that was a big part. That was a big point. You're right. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because my follow-up, you couldn't really hear it because she was talking, but George Clooney spent 10 minutes with him at a Hollywood fundraiser and determined this was not the same Joe Biden. It was the Joe Biden we saw on the debate stage. I said, you've spent at least once, if not more, times with him a week for 3.5 years. You didn't notice anything?
Because she didn't want to answer the question. She doesn't have a good answer. What is she going to say? Seriously, on the border. By the way, you hit her there. You said, look, 6 Senate Democrats voted for this bill. She's gotten away with this for 2.5 months. Oh, the Republicans killed it because Trump told them to kill it. Excuse me. 6 Democrats voted against this bill. You're really the first news person to mention that. And I'm sure you wanted to mention more, but you couldn't. So you're sitting there, and in the moment, while this is going on, are you kind of having an out-of-body experience like, geez, I really don't want it to go this way. But on the other hand, I mean, I got to stay in here, despite the fact that she's hitting a little bit below the belt.
You know, I had echoes of my interview with President Obama right before Obamacare, the vote in the House. It was 2010. I was in the White House, and they said, you get 30 minutes. I get there, they get 20 minutes. I mean, it's the same folks, I think, maybe advising. And, there's a staff guy with a cell phone that's ticking back from 20 minutes. And I asked the first question, President Obama, and it goes 3 minutes. And then I asked the second question, it goes 3.5 minutes. And the clock is ticking backwards. And finally, you do have an out-of-body experience, and you say, either I have to jump in and appear rude, or else we're going to get rolled here. And I think that's the same feeling I had. I wish I didn't talk over her. I wish we could have just stopped, but she wanted to keep going. But I'm happy she came on, Mark. And listen, I think that's a breakthrough, and hopefully she'll come back, or some people will come back, and we'll continue to have a discussion.
Well, if you didn't at least try to interrupt to get her to refocus on issues that were raised, like she said nothing about the economy when you asked her about the economy. She said nothing about Iran. It was all about protecting Israel, which they haven't done, in my humble opinion. But she kept moving it that way. I will say this. If you hadn't at least tried to get back in and explain different points and so forth in terms of your question, you would have had 3 questions and out. In other words, It would have been over. And I think you would have felt horrendous about it. And you would have said, oh, my God, I should have been a little bit more forceful. I should have gotten in there more. I should have questioned more. You really had no choice. They left you no choice.
When I left, Mark, I felt horrible. I had this feeling like, oh, my gosh, what did I leave on the table? But actually, when I watched it, I think there was some fruitful things that came out of that. And you're going to look back, and there's some newsy moments.
Well, we're very proud of you here. I thought you really tried to do your best, and you did a very, very good job under those circumstances. And they were trying to really, I think, sabotage the interview and use it as an opportunity to, to advance her general statements and so forth that we've all heard, and to use the rest of the time to trash Trump. But you didn't let her do it. You were pushing back on questions. But you know what? Here's the deal. You're a journalist. The American people can see this now, and they make up their own minds if they were impressed with her or not. You're not running for office. She is. She needs their votes. You don't need anybody's votes. Anyway, God bless you, my friend, and congratulations from my perspective.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
All right. Take care of yourself. That's the way I view it, America. I get the sense Bret really wanted a intelligent back and forth with Kamala Harris, but Kamala Harris didn't want an intelligent back and forth. She went in there angry, rude, nasty, and I saw the personality that her staffers who have quit, 92% of them, that her staffers referred to. She had an angry look on her face. She was obnoxious. She interrupted. She didn't want to answer the questions. She wanted to give the answers she wanted to give, whether they were relevant to the questions or not. She was unprepared substantively, but she was prepared for a fight. And what did she do? Trash Trump. But he asked about her. What did you learn about her on immigration? Nothing you didn't already know. What did you learn about her in the economy? Nothing you didn't already know. She says she'll follow the law, but she doesn't follow the law. She doesn't follow the law when it comes to student loans in the Supreme Court. She didn't follow the law when it comes to upholding our immigration laws. She doesn't want to take, here's my take, she doesn't want to take any responsibility for anything that she has done because it's horrendous. She is a partner in failure and worse, what she and Biden have done to this country, a partner with Biden. And she said she would do nothing differently. And that's what people need to understand, voters need to understand. If you like what's happening in the economy today, if you like what's happening in our streets today, if you like what's happening in our schools, where educational standards are in the toilet, propaganda's through the roof, pornography's in the libraries, then vote for Kamala Harris. If you like an open border with Venezuelan gangs being flown into this country, with fentanyl pouring over the border, then you have your candidate, because that's what's happening right now. It's Kamala Harris. If you want to support Iran, if you want to subsidize Iran with American taxpayer dollars, if you want Iran to get a nuclear weapon, Trump says not under his watch. Harris, well, they're funding Iran. And I can go on and on down the list. If you're happy with inflation, grocery prices, the price of gasoline and utilities, you have your candidate. Because Kamala Harris did not take the opportunity in her interview. She did not take the opportunity to explain any of it or to disagree with Biden on anything. On anything. She was exposed by herself. She exposed herself. I don't know, if you're somebody and you're looking at this, you're not saying, wow, that was great. Now I'm really compelled to vote for Kamala Harris. No, you're not. So that's the bottom line. Inside the Beltway, they'll talk about the back and forth, what they thought about this one's style, that one's style. The fact of the matter is, 25 or 30 minutes, she had every opportunity, number one, to defend her record, which she rejected, or number two, to talk about what she wanted to do going forward. And other than her usual pablum, you don't have the foggiest idea. She's not presidential, America. She's not even vice presidential. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The big wireless carriers want to limit you to two choices when it comes to data, unlimited or unlimited. And guess what? Both are stupidly expensive. So folks, stop overpaying for data you're never going to use. That's like paying for a pot of coffee when you only need a cup, or filling your entire truck bed full of gas when you only need a tank. With Pure Talk, my cell phone company, you get to choose how much data you actually want. Listen to this. For just $25 a month, get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data, which is more than enough, plus mobile hotspot. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless and get America's best 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is easy. There's no contract. There's no activation fees. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month when you sign up with Pure Talk. You know, I texted my wife, Julie, and I said, Kamala Harris came into that interview angry, almost nasty and desperate. She's not a happy woman. Are you people voting early and scaring them? I hope you are. Because I have an article here from Politico, no friend of ours, big friend of the administrations and Harris, and in my view, Iran. Pennsylvania is such a mess, quote unquote, inside Team Harris, unusual levels of finger pointing. Now, I want to get into this a little bit in hour 3. Many of the state's most well-connected Democrats have been worried about the operation for months. Now, again, when I tell you things like this, it's not so, we can be thinking about the good ship Lollipop, the good old day. No. We're in a struggle. We're in hand-to-hand political combat here. That is, you get the vote out, you vote early, and you get more people out to vote. That's what the numbers game is. That's it. All the rest of it doesn't matter. All the lead up to this doesn't matter. But the reason I'm going to get into this piece a little bit is to demonstrate to you her utter incapacity to do anything competently. Anything. That debate hurt her. That interview hurt her. Not because of Bret Baier, because of herself. She could have gone in there. She could have been a statesman. She could have taken control of the interview, not by bully tactics, not by talking over Bret, not by not answering questions, but by being so well prepared, people say, wow, I didn't know she had that in her. Nobody's going to say that after that interview. Wow, Now she makes sense. Now I understand immigration. Now I understand her position on economics. You don't. You come out of that dumber than when you went in, not because of Bret Baier, because of her. I don't think she persuaded a single vote. In fact, she probably turned a bunch of people off. One more powerful hour left. First two went very quickly. We'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Welcome back, America. It's been a power-packed 2 hours. A lot to do here. Pennsylvania, my home state, the Keystone State. Politico has a piece they're writing. You always have to wonder about their agenda on the left. Why would they write this piece? And I think they're writing this piece to try and wake up the Kamala Harris campaign to get its act together. Well, why would Mark read it? Does he want his listeners to kind of take the foot off the gas pedal? No, never. Nobody who listens to this program thinks that for 1 second. I want you to vote early. My family's already voted. They've already voted. In Tennessee, in New Jersey, and in Virginia. And I'm going to get my ass down to Florida before Election Day, and I'm going to be voting there. Anyway, here's Politico. Pennsylvania's such a mess. Inside Team Harris's unusual levels of finger-pointing. By Holly Otterbein and Elena Schneider. Philadelphia. Top Democrats in Pennsylvania are worried. Vice President Kamala Harris's operation is being poorly run in the nation's biggest battleground state. They say some Harris aides lack relationships with key party figures, particularly in Philadelphia and its suburbs. Well, that's where, for the Democrats, they need most of their votes. They complain they've been left out of events and surrogates haven't been deployed effectively. And they've urged Harris staff in private meetings to do more to turn out votes of color. Votes of color. Don't they mean voters of color, Mr. Producer? Some are even pointing fingers at Harris's Pennsylvania campaign manager, Nikki Lou, who they say lacks deep knowledge of Philadelphia, where the vice president must drive up voter turnout in order to win. I have concerns about Nikki Lou, said Ryan Boyer. I wonder if he's a racist. No, just kidding. Don't worry, Ryan. Who, as the first black head of the city's influential Building Trades Council, is one of the most powerful labor leaders in the state. I don't think she understands Philadelphia. Well, they ought to pay attention to that guy because he's going to get votes for them. Nikki Lou. For some Pennsylvania Democratic elected officials, party leaders, and allies, 20 of whom Politico spoke to for this article. They're anxious. The in-state operation has set them back. Latino and black Democratic leaders met with Harris officials behind closed doors in separate meetings in Philadelphia late last month and pressed the campaign on their concerns, said 5 who attended or were briefed on them. In the conversations, which included Lou and Harris Deputy Chief of Staff Sergio Gonzalez, and the leaders asked for a greater presence at local events, an improved surrogate operation, and a more sophisticated understanding of how to engage with diverse voting blocs. Lou did not respond to a request for comment for this article. In recent weeks, the in-state campaign has brought on new staff, which has given some Democrats more confidence, but they fear they're running out of time. Pennsylvania is seen both by Harris and former President Donald Trump as pivotal to the presidential race, draw more than $500 million in TV ad spending and reservations through the end of the year, the most of any state in the country. And Democrats fret that any mistake here, big or small, could tip the election away from them. Harris's path to victory depends on her ability to turn out the heavily Democratic voters in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and the surrounding suburbs, a coalition that relies on a strong performance with voters of color. If the campaign can't get them to the polls, the state in the presidential race could be lost. See, this is a red flag to the campaign from Politico. And it's also an effort, conversely, to try and convince you and me, we got it in the bag in Pennsylvania. No, we don't. We don't have anything in the bag. We've got to have bigger numbers than than usual because of all those non-citizens the Department of Justice wants left on voting rolls. I mean, that's a fact, and that's fraud. I feel like we're going to win here, but we're going to win it in spite of the Harris state campaign, said a Democrat elected official in the state who, like others for this story, was granted anonymity. Pennsylvania is such a mess, and it's incredibly frustrating. And they could be the Keystone Cops in the Keystone State and still win. That's what I worry about if we don't vote early. In a statement, National Campaign Manager Julie Chavez Rodriguez said Harris's ground game and outreach to voters of color are stronger than Trump's. Republicans have sounded alarms about Trump's turnout machine in Pennsylvania and other states. Chavez Rodriguez also said that Harris is aggressively crisscrossing the state. She did not comment directly on complaints about Lou and her leadership. The Trump campaign declined to provide a number of staffitas in Pennsylvania. Well, why would they tell Politico? But spokesperson Kush Desai of Trump's campaign said it has more than 24 offices in the state, including one focused on Latino outreach in Reading and another in Philadelphia, where much of the team's black voter engagement takes place. There's no part of the Commonwealth we're ignoring, she said. Some of the Democrats' frustrations could be exacerbated by Pennsylvania's size and long-standing regional differences. Lou hails from Pittsburgh, which is located on the other side of the state from Philadelphia, and the major black and Latino communities in southeastern Pennsylvania. And complaints about outreach to voters of color are common in Democrat politics in Pennsylvania, but the level of frustration and finger-pointing is not. You know, as I read this out loud to you, it's a stupid article, isn't it, Mr. Begich? It's internally contradicting themselves. Contradictory. It's just a stupid article. And they have two reporters on it. Philadelphia City Council member Kendra Brooks, a member of the Working Families Party who's endorsed Harris, said there's been a lot of struggles on the in-state Harris campaign, which he attributed to folks coming into Philadelphia that are making assumptions about what needs to happen in Philadelphia and not necessarily having the relationships to move Philadelphia politics. I'll tell you the card that they have to play and they're playing, that is Harris and the Democrats, is money. They're spending $1 billion. They're outspending everybody, including in Pennsylvania. Now, Donald Trump's campaign has raised a lot of money, but not $1 billion. And $1 billion means they not only have enough money to run ads wherever they want to run them, that's propaganda money. You just keep repeating the lies, the lies, the lies, and the lies. And you get into people's heads. You buy local news spots on news stations. They're buying everything on football. By the way, when you go on to, say, Bing.com or Google.com or whatever you go, all of a sudden there pops up a Kamala Harris ad. Have you seen that, Mr. Begich? You can't escape them. They're everywhere. On the internet. They're everywhere. On local TV, on national TV. That's what they're hoping will happen. That's what they're hoping will happen. Now, money may not be the decisive factor, but it is a factor. Again, maybe not the decisive factor, but it is a factor. The campaign also highlighted a mix of advertisements, interviews, and get-out-the-vote operations targeting voters of color, such as Harris's appearances on black radio stations. You don't have black radio stations. You have radio stations with black hosts. Vice presidential nominee Tim Walz's stop on an Allentown-based banner. Yeah, and he probably lost 25 votes in that one stop right there. Paulette Aniskoff, who served as Obama's 2008 field director in Pennsylvania, has taken leave from the firm Bully Pulpit International to serve as a senior advisor. Yeah, they're bringing in all the reprobates. All the Obama-ites, the Clintonites, the Trotskyites. They're bringing in all the ites. My attitude is this. We focus on us. We can't help what they do. We can't celebrate what they do. We focus on you and me. And in our own lives, focus on getting out early and voting, folks. I'm going to say it every time right up until Election Day. Get out early, vote. Family members, friends, colleagues, co-workers who are in our camp, you got to get them out. I understand there's a lot of people who believe in the Second Amendment, you members of the National Rifle Association who tend not to vote. What the hell is that all about? They're targeting the Second Amendment. Get out and vote. Don't leave it to everybody else. Oh, that's okay. My vote won't matter. It sure as hell will matter. You're talking about maybe 20,000 votes in a state? And when you're talking about 20,000 votes in a state, you're really talking about 10,000 votes. What do you mean, Mark? If you lose by 20,000 votes, right? If 10,000 of your people came out and voted, 10,001, you would have won. You get my point, Mr. Producer? So if you lose by 20,000, you really needed 10,001 people to vote. And think about, I forget, I think there's 67 counties in Pennsylvania. Think about how few the number is in each county in Pennsylvania or whatever state you live in. It matters now more than ever. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's a very important congressional race going on in our biggest state. We call it Alaska. Fantastic state. I've never been there. Our candidate is Nick Begich. He's running for Congress in the seat. They're Alaskans for nickbegich.com, B-E-G-I-C-H. You know, I watch all these shows about Alaska. And I love it. The mountain men and all the rest of it, the fishing and and I say, you know what? I can't handle that environment. Why? I love nature, but I love to be inside looking outside at it. And so I really admire people who can get into that. Now, Nick Begich, how are you, sir? And tell us about your race, because this is a very important race, the speaker told me.
Very important race up here in Alaska. We've got a Democrat representing the state of Alaska for the first time in 49 years, and we need to make that change. This is our opportunity to flip the seat, grow the House majority. Alaska's a red state. You're going to see Donald Trump carry Alaska by more than 10 points, and we need to make sure that we're returning a Republican to the House to represent this all-important state for the country. You know, Alaska has more resources than any other state in the nation. Minerals, oil and gas, timber, fish. We provide 60% of the nation's seafood in Alaska. So it's important that we have a pro-resource person representing our state in the Congress, not just for Alaska, but for the entire nation.
So, Nick Begich, tell the nation a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your opponent.
Well, I'll tell you, she's a hard-left Democrat who pretends to be a moderate. She votes with Nancy Pelosi 90% of the time, voting with Biden and Harris more than 80% of the time. And that simply doesn't reflect the values of hardworking Alaskans. There was a survey done here recently that showed Alaskans of all the states in the nation work more hours per week than any other state in the country, and our representative currently has one of the worst attendance records in the entire Congress. I'm a hard worker. I come from the business side. I didn't grow up in government, unlike my opponent, who spent essentially all of her career on the government side. I come from the private sector, and I believe that's where the innovation that has made the American way of life possible originates. And we need to reduce the size of government, reduce the footprint of government in our daily lives, and allow the private sector to flourish. That's how we're going to grow this economy again.
Now, what about your background and her background?
Yeah, I mean, she has spent her entire career in government. And my background, I'm an entrepreneur, started a number of businesses, and have spent the bulk of my career in technology. So my background is helping startups, early-stage companies at the PowerPoint deck stage, earliest stage, figure out how to build a business, how to find customers, how to build a product, how to find financing for their companies, and how to build teams. And that's what I've done over the last 20 years, because I really believe that startup economy, that early-stage economy, is what drives the next generation of flourishing big businesses in our nation. And those become the employers. We know that. Small business becomes the employment engine for our nation. And we have someone in the seat right now who's never started a business, has barely worked for one in her entire life, and simply is disconnected from the real world in that sense.
Alaskans for Nick Begich.com, Alaskans for Nick Begich, Begich.com. Does it help you or hurt you if I endorse you?
I'd be honored to have your endorsement. And before I was a candidate for Congress, I listened to you on the radio all the time. I'm a huge fan.
Well, I want to endorse you because I want us to win that seat, because Alaskans deserve people who actually share their values. You know, we down here in the continental United States, we look at Alaska as really one of the few frontiers left, and obviously not everybody. There's towns in Alaska too, but one of the few frontiers that's left. It's got a remarkable history. And it's funny how representatives and senators from New York and Massachusetts and California want to control the resources in Alaska, and you have a member of the House of Representatives that agrees with them, yes?
She does. You know, we recently had a bill actually brought forward by Representative Pete Stauber of the great state of Minnesota called the Alaska's Right to Produce Act that pushes back against 67 executive orders that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have issued specifically targeting Alaska's ability to produce resources and access those resources. And so he introduces this bill in the House Resources Committee. Our current representative co-sponsored the bill, was all for it. It hits the House floor, and she decides she's had a change of heart and encourages all of her Democrat colleagues to vote no on that bill. She's a co-sponsor, tells people vote no on the bill, and then when it comes up for the vote, she doesn't vote yes. And she actually didn't have the guts to vote no. She voted present. And I can tell you as an Alaskan, that is an affront to everything we believe. We are hardworking people who tell it like it is, and we got a representative that's not doing that for us.
Yeah, no, she does it purposely so she can say one thing to one group and one thing to another, which is really a Svengali. Now, how's the fundraising going, she versus you?
I'll tell you, we just had a quarterly report came out yesterday. We had our best quarter yet, raised nearly $1 million, but she came in, she raised nearly $5 million.
That's amazing.
And that's how serious the Democrats are at trying to regain control of the House, because we know with high confidence we're going to get the Senate back. Donald Trump will win the presidency because our people are going to turn out. We are motivated, and we're doing that. We're seeing that in early voting. If you're listening out there today, as was said before the break, make sure you're voting. Take nothing for granted at all. But we're going to get those too. But we've got to hold the House. If we don't hold the House, we can't move Donald Trump's agenda through in the next 4 years.
And if we lose Alaska on election night, that's going to be a very bad bellwether, as far as I'm concerned. We got a race there in Nebraska, some of these states. You know, I'd like to hold you over the break, if I might, Nick. And the thing is, you have a very weird voting system there that was set up. There was a period of time where the Democrats win because the Republicans are killing each other. But it looks like that's been resolved, that the Republicans have united behind you, and now it's a one-on-one race. Is that correct?
That's correct. We do. We have a ranked choice voting system, and if you see this come up in your state, my strong advice to you is to do everything you can to prevent it from taking hold, because it has been gamed by the left in order to win districts that they have no business representing.
All right, folks, we're going to come back with Nick Begich, who's a fantastic candidate, with being a fantastic member of the House. Check out AlaskansForNickBegich.com, AlaskansForNickBegich, Begich.com. If you can give him help in Alaska or anywhere in the country, it'll make a big difference. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
So we're highlighting races around the country. I can't do them all. They're all very, very important, obviously, where you live. But some of these other races where we have an opportunity to pick up seats, to knock out incumbents, or there's empty seats. Alaska's a prime target with Nick Begich, who's a terrific candidate. AlaskansForNickBegich.com, Begich.com. What is your sense? What's going on in Alaska? Are our people, that is Republicans, conservatives, libertarians, do they seem fired up? Or does the other side seem fired up?
They are fired up. Republicans, independents, libertarians, you name it. If they're center to right of center, they are fired up to take this country back. They've seen the effects of Harris and Biden and their team in the Congress on our nation. We have an inflationary environment that we just can't seem to get out of because the left doesn't seem to understand it's their policies, not businesses, not the private sector, the policies of government that are creating the challenges that we have in life today. And it's simply a lack of discipline in D.C., where they're printing money to pay bills. And when you do that, you're going to get inflation.
By the way, just the weekly grind flying from Alaska to Washington, D.C., should you win. How long is that flight? I'm sure there's not a direct flight. How long is that?
Well, they just started up a direct flight, but it's seasonal. We have to fly about 1,500 miles just about to get to Seattle from Anchorage. Then the trip begins. So it's a long haul. Yeah, it is a long haul. It's actually closer from the East Coast to Europe than it is from Alaska to D.C. in terms of time in the seat.
And what town do you live in?
So I live just north of Anchorage, and just to give folks a sense, Alaska is about 2.5 times the size of Texas. So when you have just one representative for a state that large, even when someone like me is not traveling to what we call the lower 48, we're traveling in-state. Just last week, I went from Anchorage to Kodiak, which is one of the nation's largest islands, nation's largest Coast Guard base, for a debate on fisheries for 2 hours, went from there up to Fairbanks for a chamber debate, back down to Anchorage the same day for another debate, and then down to on the Kenai Peninsula, and then back to Juneau, our capital, which is hundreds and hundreds of miles away. You have to fly from Anchorage to Juneau, so it's a big place already as it is.
You have to fly a lot of these sort of these hopper planes, I call them, where you got, these single engine planes. Do you have to do a lot of that? Because, we know of terrible stories where you've lost a congressman, you lost a senator. The weather can get pretty rough out there.
It can, and actually, it's interesting that you mentioned that because today is the anniversary of my grandfather's disappearance on one of those planes. He was with Hale Boggs, who was House Majority Leader, and that was October 16th, 1972. Their plane disappeared and was never found. So, yes, absolutely. To access many of these areas of the state, it requires those single-engine planes, two-seater, four-seater planes. You're flying out in order to get there. There's no other way.
Wow, that's kind of nerve-wracking. And the travel you talk about and so forth and so on, and you really do have to go into smaller communities. You do need to meet the people. The television coverage, is it throughout the state?
It is. It's throughout the state. Thank God for Elon Musk, because he's connecting so much of Alaska to the internet, to the rest of the world through Starlink, which we do have up here in Alaska. And I'll tell you what we really need in our state are more roads. The resources of our nation that are here in Alaska, we can't get to them because we don't have enough highways, we don't have enough roads, we don't have the infrastructure that we need because we are still, relative to other states, a very young state. But it's estimated that Alaska has more undiscovered oil and gas resources than anywhere else in the country. And we've got to do more to expand the ability to access critical minerals, base metals, precious metals, and the rare earths that we have in abundance in Alaska. A lot of people around the nation aren't familiar with just how much abundance is here in Alaska. And when we see Biden and Harris issue 67 executive orders trying to shut our state down, I tell folks, look, if you're on the right or you're on the left or you're somewhere in the middle, you should care about doing things right, developing resources right. And when they shut down one of the world's most responsible jurisdictions in Alaska in exchange for places like Russia and China, Afghanistan, and Iran.
Crazy.
That's wrong. That is crazy. People on the left should be demanding to open up Alaska, and they're shutting us down, not because they care about the earth, but because they want to see a political outcome where they can get 2 Senate seats out of our state by turning our resources and the conservative voters that come along with them off.
And, you know, the people of Alaska have been lied to by Washington over and over and over again. These deals that are made that you can only drill in certain parts of Alaska, and then they take those certain parts of Alaska and they say, actually, you can't drill there either. Isn't that right?
That's right. You know, there have been permits that have actually been issued and then later pulled because you have an overactive bureaucracy. I call it cubicle lawmaking, where you have these regulatory agencies run amok that try to make and pass, and they're successful passing regulations through that have the force and effect of law, but they've never been passed through Congress. And this is where the Supreme Court's decision on Chevron deference, to overturn Chevron deference, is huge for our state because it forces the issues back to the Congress where we are supposed to make precise and clear laws for the regulatory agencies, not deferring that lawmaking to a largely woke bureaucracies in government that want to see resource development shut off.
It's one of the greatest decisions of modern times, the reversal of the Chevron case, and we've talked about it here. And basically, the position of the Supreme Court and the government before this was the massive bureaucracy typically has the final say, and that the courts have to view that as pretty much the final say. And so the pressure is on the plaintiff or the person who brings the complaint, the complainant, to demonstrate why it shouldn't be, which is typically an impossible standard. And so the court now said, no, wait a minute. The bureaucracy's out of control. We see what it's done. We made a mistake. And so it will not be assumed that their final decision is the final say. And now you have actual judicial review, honest judicial review of these decisions being made. And it matters to states like Alaska, Montana, and Wyoming. It matters to all of us, as a matter of fact. So, Nick Begich, what would you like to leave the audience with? Let's give your side again. What kind of help you need? And what kind of argument you want to make in the final moments here?
I want people to understand something so important that we seem to have lost in our country. And it's this idea. This nation belongs to you. This is your country. This is your nation. Every 2 years, you have an opportunity to go to the polls and tell the world what you think. That's our responsibility. That's our job as citizens. We can't fall down on the job. We have to take our country back, because I'll tell you what, if we don't show up at those polls, someone else on the left is going to show up for you and tell you how you're going to live your life. Get out there and vote, and make sure you're bringing people with you. That is critically important if we're going to take this nation back, if we're going to get the Senate, if we're going to get the House, if we're going to get Donald Trump elected. That's what we have to do. So please get involved, donate, do everything you can, because this election is the most important of our lifetimes.
There's no question about it. It absolutely is, because the left has made it clear it's the most important election of their lifetime, because they feel that they just need one more victory, one more control of the White House, the Senate, and the House to make permanent changes that we can never undo, right?
That's right. They are activists. They have religion around their politics, and they will do everything they can, legal and illegal, in order to attempt to win. And so we have got to make sure we are turning out in large numbers. Bring your family, friends, neighbors, colleagues, you name it. Bring them to the polls, and we're going to take this country back this November.
I think you'd be a great congressman. I endorse you wholeheartedly. My brothers and sisters in Alaska, please vote early and make sure your friends and colleagues and family members who are supportive of our position do exactly the same thing. And remember, you can go to AlaskansForNickBegich.com. That's Begich, AlaskansForNickBegich.com. And I wish you all the best, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Keep up the fight. Let's win this.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. You know, Sarah Palin, who I liked and still like, I don't keep in touch. She invited me to Alaska many times, didn't she, Mr. Producer? I took a pass. There's a reason why our residence, is in Florida. Just saying. But I do love watching these programs. As soon as I see Alaska on there, I turn to these programs. And by the way, I love watching these programs of these people living off the grid. I mean, these are serious Americans. I love watching them. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Let's see. Biden angrily rebukes Trump in Pennsylvania. We have that, don't we, Mr. Producer? So they send Mr. Dementia out there, and he proves, as Kamala proved today, that she's a nitwit, that he has dementia. Cut 6, go.
There's the same guy who's been held liable for $83 million for sexual abuse and
Hey, what about you, pal? Whatever happened to Tara Reid? Remember she left the country and ran to Russia because she was afraid of you and your hoodlums? Remember that? Hands? Remember sniffing little girls' hairs and touching them on the neck? I mean, talk about a pervert. Go ahead.
Same guy. For getting rid of Roe v. Wade, the same guy.
Yeah. So Roe v. Wade is in there with sexual abuse. This guy's so stupid. But he's been stupid his whole life. Really, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead.
For him when he loses. And by the way, 34 felonies. And so far, he hadn't get sentenced.
You see, ladies and gentlemen, lawfare. See how they use it? Biden was involved in this. He's up to his eyeballs. And I love it when the media says, can you prove it? I don't know. Give me subpoena power. I'll prove it. I'll depose people. I'll prove it. But they don't care about that. But look how they use it. Look at him. He was found guilty. Yeah. And a special counsel found you to be an imbecile, certified you officially as an imbecile, said you violated the Espionage Act when you were a senator and when you were vice president. You made money off of it, actually. You sold secrets in order to get a book deal. Yeah, you jerk, Biden. You made millions. You and the lugs in your family, off the communist Chinese, off the fascistic Russians, and God knows who else. No wonder you cut off our ability to get our oil and gas out of the ground. No wonder you subsidize Iran, which sells its oil to communist China. That's right. That's right. You're the Manchurian president, nitwit. Go ahead.
Sentence kickback, but I want to watch that sentence.
Now, this is a guy in Philadelphia. He's going to persuade voters? You've been humiliated, doofus. You've been humiliated, you schmuck. On national display for years. It took the debate for some people who weren't focused to get focused. And you were humiliated. Your own party and your own press got rid of you. Then you're fighting them. I'm not going to. And then Nancy Pelosi, Stretch as we call her, given the number of face jobs she's had. Stretch gives you the orders and you capitulate like a little girl. Like a little girl. Now you're a lame schmuck. You're a lame schmuck president. Go ahead.
If he was running for himself, I think he's running to stay out of jail. What's he got left?
Now, keep in mind, this is the same party, the same president, same vice president, who say that Trump wants to put people in jail. You see? Biden's Department of Justice is doing this. Biden's party, DAs and attorneys general, are doing this. They say they have nothing to do about it. And they're laughing about it. They want to see him in jail. He wants to get elected so he can stay out of jail. And what's your excuse, dummy? What's your excuse? If you hadn't been president, you would have been charged with espionage violations. Why did you steal those documents out of the Senate vault? Why'd you do that? Why did you steal those documents when you were vice president of the United States? Those are crimes. Anybody else would have been charged with felonies. Why is that? What a jerk. All these people. No damn good. And I don't understand this guy Charlemagne. Well, Charlemagne says, who cares? Who cares? She goes on. Yes, he's going to lock you up. He's going to lock you all up if he gets back in office. That's the brilliance of Charlemagne. I've already said, I put money on the table that Kamala Harris isn't put in prison by Donald Trump if he's elected president. Let's do it, brother. Let's do it. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine, our brothers and sisters in Israel. We have your back. We know what you're going to do, and we're all for you. And, of course, the American people, you. God bless each and every one of you, and I'll see you tomorrow.